The Masquerade Ball by Zhou Dedong. This was Yuan Xiaojiang's first time attending a masquerade ball. She had told no one and came alone, feeling both curious and nervous. At the entrance, a sign announced that each person could buy only one mask. She chose one that was a little prettier than the others, a demoness mask, with a deathly pale face and blood-red lips. Then she followed an attendant down a long, steep staircase. The ball had already begun. She was the last one to arrive. This underground bar was spacious and dim, with fluorescent lights flashing everywhere, giving it a bizarre, unreal look. From the blackened corners, wisps of white smoke would occasionally rise. The music was wild and deafening. People wore all kinds of strange costumes and all kinds of eerie masks, twisting their bodies as if possessed and plunging themselves into a temporary fiction. The advertisement had called it the coolest party for men, the most dazzling for women. Who knew what faces were hiding behind those masks? Yuan Xiaojiang's excitement was kindled. She joined the others in dancing with abandon. She had never felt so carefree. Every bone and muscle in her body seemed to have scattered into notes, trembling, soaring. No one would have guessed that beneath the demoness mask was an introverted, sensitive, and conservative girl. No one knew how long had passed before the disco music came to a sudden stop. Everyone came to a reluctant halt and returned to their seats. Yuan Xiaojiang noticed that one man was not wearing a mask. He sat in the deepest corner, neither smoking nor drinking, simply watching in silence. He was the only real person in the entire room. Yuan Xiaojiang went over and sat beside him. She saw that he was holding two masks in his hands, one a cat face and the other a dog face, and she could not help wondering, each person was only allowed to buy one, so how did he have two? At that table, only he and she were sitting together. Yuan Xiaojiang thought he would strike up a conversation, but he did not even look at her. Finding it a little dull, she asked an attendant for a glass of ice water and drank it one sip at a time. A graceful waltz replaced the disco. Behind her mask, Yuan Xiaojiang looked around the room, searching for a dance partner. Today, she wanted to experience a personality opposite to her own all the way through. She wanted to find the ugliest man wearing a mask. At last, she found one. He was sitting alone, wearing a devil mask. His face was green, the skin around his eyes black as a panda's, and jagged teeth jutted out from his mouth. He looked powerfully built. Just as Yuan Xiaojiang was about to stand and walk toward him, the man beside her, the one with his face uncovered, suddenly spoke. "Miss, be careful." Yuan Xiaojiang turned to look at him. "You mean me?" His eyes still did not look at her. They kept scanning the dance floor warily as he said in a low voice, "There's something abnormal in this bar tonight. Why?" He finally turned his face toward her and raised the two masks in his hand. "This cat mask is the one I bought. This dog mask is the one I picked up. What do you mean? Among all these people with terrifying faces, there is one who isn't wearing a mask." Pairs of dancers had already gone down onto the floor. Yuan Xiaojiang quickly swept her eyes across the room, then said sincerely, "You're as sharp as a detective. Have you ever heard this story? Every masquerade ball is missing one girl." "No. Almost everyone who comes to a masquerade ball doesn't want anyone they know to find out, so they come alone. And the ball is noisy and chaotic. No one knows one another. That is why nobody has discovered this terrible secret. Where did all those girls go, taken away by one man? Of course, none of them ever came back. What kind of girls did he take away? The last one to arrive." Yuan Xiaojiang immediately felt that the man was teasing her. Why would a girl go with him? Did he use some kind of love potion? I don't know what method he used. In any case, the girl always obeyed him. What happened next was almost always the same. He and she drove out to the countryside to make love. On the way, the man never took off the mask on his face. In the end, they would stop the car beside a patch of woods and begin to embrace, begin to kiss. The girl would reach out to remove that horrific mask from his face, and he would not move at all, letting her take it off. But after groping at his face for a while, she would surely cry out because he wasn't wearing anything at all. That mask was his face. "You mean that man is here tonight?" "I think so. So you'd better change masks." He lifted the cat mask in his hand. Yuan Xiaojiang hesitated, then accepted his advice and said softly, "Thank you." Just as she was about to leave, a mischievous idea came to her. She turned back and said, "What if you put on my demoness mask? What could he do then?" He froze for a moment and said, "I'd really like to try." Yuan Xiaojiang put on the cat mask and felt much safer. She walked up to the devil and took the initiative to ask him to dance. He accepted at once as if it were only natural. The two of them went down onto the dance floor, arms around each other's shoulders and backs, moving gracefully. They both seemed completely absorbed in the beautiful melody, and neither of them spoke. Yuan Xiaojiang did not quite believe the story, but she still watched the other man warily a few times. Although the light was very dim, she was certain he was wearing a mask. She could faintly make out a ring of dark, blurry gaps around the edge of the mask. That put her at ease. His eyes seemed somewhat gloomy, drifting lightly across the room as if his attention were not on her at all. "Are you looking for someone?" Yuan Xiaojiang finally asked. He hesitated and said, "Sorry, I lost the mask I just bought on the staircase." Yuan Xiaojiang suddenly stopped dancing and stared at him. "Isn't the mask on your face?" "Oh, this is the original one." Then he led her on with the dance. "Go look for it outside later," Yuan Xiaojiang said quietly. "Actually, I'm looking for a girl." "What girl?" She was wearing a demoness mask and vanished in the blink of an eye. "What are you looking for her for?" She was the last one to arrive. She stopped dancing again and stared at him. "What does that matter?" "Maybe she picked up my mask." Suddenly, he fixed his gaze on something. His eyes went rigid, and his large hands began to twitch slightly. She followed his gaze and looked over there. The man from earlier had put on her demoness mask. His face was turned in this direction, completely still, like a mummy. A thunderclap seemed to roll across the floor, and the underground room began to tremble faintly. The devil-masked man's large hands shook even harder. Yuan Xiaojiang let go of him and pressed a hand to her forehead. At last he drew his gaze back and asked suspiciously, "What's wrong?" "Sorry, I've got a bit of a headache." "That's all right. Go back and rest for a while." Yuan Xiaojiang turned away from him, hurried back to the first man, and felt as if her heart were about to burst from her chest. "Take off your mask. Leave here now." "What happened?" He removed the mask and stared at her intently. "You were right. That terrible man is at tonight's ball." As she spoke, she tore off her own mask, threw it to the floor, and walked quickly toward the exit. He followed behind her, asking relentlessly, "Was it the one you were dancing with just now?" "It was him." When they reached the exit, Yuan Xiaojiang looked back. The man in the devil mask seemed to have discovered the flaw. In the chaos of moving figures, he fixed her with a dead stare and walked straight toward her. Terrified beyond reason, she scrambled up the long, steep staircase as fast as she could. Outside, it was raining, and thunder and lightning split the sky. It was almost midnight by then, and there was not a single taxi at the entrance. The keen man who had seemed like a detective climbed up after her and shouted, "Do you have a car?" "No." He ran toward a sedan, pulled out a remote, unlocked the doors and said over his shoulder, "Get in." "I'll take you." Yuan Xiaojiang hurried into his car. Looking out through the window, she saw that the man in the devil mask had already crawled out of the underground bar and was standing in the rain, looking around wildly. His face, lit by the street lamp, was horrifying. Thank heaven, the car drove off. Leaning back in the seat, Yuan Xiaojiang let out a long breath and said wearily, "By the way, just drop me at the gate of the Academy of Fine Arts family compound." He drove on as he said loudly, "The world is just like this. Some people wear masks and you think they are barefaced. Some people aren't wearing masks, and yet you think they are." Still shaken, Yuan Xiaojiang closed her eyes. He may have noticed and said nothing more. That devil mask kept flashing through Yuan Xiaojiang's mind. The green face, the black eye sockets, the uneven teeth. Not knowing how far they had gone, she suddenly opened her eyes and asked, "Why didn't you wear a mask when you came to the masquerade ball?" The car jolted. He gripped the steering wheel with complete concentration. "Who said I wasn't wearing one?" In fact, the moment Yuan Xiaojiang asked the question, she saw a horrifying truth. The car had already driven out into the countryside. Panicking, she cried, "What are you doing?" "This face is my mask." As he spoke, he brought the car to a stop beside a black shadowy grove of trees. Another thunderclap. Yuan Xiaojiang stared at him in a daze. He said softly, "It was me. Every time I'm the one who takes a girl away from the masquerade ball." The end.